Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission here is pretty simple. We take a stack of compelling sources, we strip away all the confusion, and we try to give you the clearest nuggets of knowledge and insight we can find.
And today, we are really jumping into the deep end.
We're doing a theological deep dive, and it's focused on an image that is so potent, so challenging, it just grabs you. I'm talking about the metaphor in Hosea 5.14.
It's a pivotal verse. It really is. I mean, when most of us think of God as a lion, our minds immediately go to protection.
Right, the Lion of Judah.
Exactly. The majestic, conquering lion who defends his people. You see it in Revelation. It's a cherished image. But the source material we're looking at today, it presents this radical shift.
A huge shift.
Here, the lion rises up, but not for defense. It's rising specifically to tear in judgment. And it's tearing his own people.
It just flips the script entirely.
Yeah.
This is not the comforting image of a shepherd, gathering his flock.
Not at all. This is an image that's designed to convey absolute, unchallengeable power. Our sources really emphasize that when this lion seizes its prey, there is no defense.
No one can save you.
No king, no military, certainly no human can pry that victim from its jaws.
And to really get why such an extreme image was necessary, we have to understand the historical reality.
Yes, we have to anchor ourselves there. This judgment was for both the northern kingdom, Israel, and the southern kingdom, Judah. And they were living in an age of just immense geopolitical pressure.
Right. If you were a citizen in one of those small kingdoms, you were literally caught, stuck in the middle of these huge existential threats.
Precisely. To your north, you had the growing, just terrifying might of the Assyrian Empire, a force known for its brutal efficiency.
And to the south?
To the south, you have the ancient established power of Egypt. And these two nations were constantly playing political chess, often using Israel and Judah as well as pawns.
Buffer states.
Exactly. It was an incredibly precarious situation to be in.
And it was that constant pressure, that feeling of impending doom, that really exposed the spiritual rot that was happening inside both kingdoms.
It absolutely did. And while Judah, the southern kingdom, might have maintained the physical temple and the outward form of faithfulness.
They were still doing the rituals, maybe?
Perhaps. But inwardly, the sources are clear. Their hearts had followed the same path as apostate Israel. They were deeply compromised.
So the problem wasn't just, say, physical idols in the streets, but something much deeper, a change of allegiance in the heart.
That's the core diagnosis. They were mingling with the nations all around them, absorbing pagan customs. They were bowing to idols, not just foreign gods, but also the idol of their own self-sufficiency.
And forgetting God.
And, crucially, forgetting the covenant Lord who had called them into existence in the first place. The analysis is it's so sharp. It says, God saw not a divided picture.
Right, not one good, one bad.
No, not at all. He saw two kingdoms equally guilty, equally adulterous, equally proud. So that outward piety was basically meaningless when the inward reality was panic and paganism.
And that panic that led directly to their political actions. I mean, when you stop believing God is enough to save you from Assyria.
You start looking for salvation from Assyria itself. It's the ultimate irony.
This is the moment the spiritual sin becomes political.
It is. Surrounded by these giants, they desperately sought protection through human wisdom. They started signing non-aggression pacts, making treaties, paying massive tribute to foreign kings.
So they thought they were being pragmatic, just managing risk.
In their minds, yes. But in the eyes of the sources, they were committing treason against their true king.
So it sounds like the false worship and the foreign alliances weren't really two different sins.
They weren't. They were twin manifestations of the same core failure.
Which was?
That is the essential insight from our material. They were two sides of the same coin of unbelief. It was a profound lack of faith that God was enough. That's what drove both the spiritual idolatry and the political maneuvering.
They were more afraid of Assyria's army than they were in awe of God's power.
Perfectly put. They trusted Egypt's gold more than they trusted God's provision. They were looking for deliverance horizontally, everywhere, except vertically from the one true deliverer.
Okay, let's shift the language of the judgment itself, because it is designed to stun you and prevent any kind of misinterpretation. God declares with this thunderous repetition, I, even I, will tear you to pieces. Why that double emphasis? Why not just say, I will judge you?
That repetition, I, even I, is a theological device. It's there to eradicate all confusion about causality. It's meant to prevent any misattribution, to make sure the listener knows the true source of their suffering.
But I can imagine the average person, watching their city fall to the Assyrian war machine. They would just say, Assyria is strong and we were weak. How does this force them to look past that?
That is the crucial interpretive leap they have to make. They must realize that what looks like political misfortune or military weakness is, in fact, a deliberate, calculated act from God's own hand.
An act of chastening.
Exactly. The power of that repetition forces them to distinguish the instrument from the hand that wields it.
So Assyria is just a tool, a very efficient, very brutal tool.
A tool, yes. And our sources detail the specific contrasts they have to accept. The disaster they face is not because of Assyria's innate strength.
But because of God's sovereignty.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not due to Egypt's diplomatic cunning, but because of God's corrective chastening. And it is certainly not because their pathetic little idols failed to protect them.
It's because of God's righteous anger.
The unleashing of God's righteous anger.
Wow. That is just a staggering claim of authority. It means every event in history, even the rise and fall of these immense empires, is ultimately filtered through God's purpose for his people.
It reiterates the singularity of his power. He alone is God. He alone is king. And this is the difficult part, the necessary admission. He alone wounds.
And ultimately, he alone heals.
He retains absolute control over the entire process, from the initial destructive judgment all the way to the final promised restoration.
Which brings us, I think, to the hardest part of this whole analysis. This idea of loving severity. If God is this brutal, unstoppable lion tearing them apart, how can that tearing ever be restorative?
Yeah.
Can we truly say he tears to restore?
We have to grapple with that paradox because according to this material, the judgment is never just about retribution. It's always purposeful, and it always holds restoration on the horizon.
So what's the rationale?
The rationale is intensely protective, even if it feels destructive. God would much rather see his people utterly broken and brought low than allow them to prosper and feel comfortable in their rebellion.
That's a hard truth. We prefer the image of the gentle shepherd, protecting the lambs. The roar of a lion tearing into the sheep feels like the exact opposite of faithfulness.
Yet the sources describe this roar not as hatred, but as the fierce cry of a faithful God calling his people back to himself. It's a form of discipline, and it's driven by covenant fidelity.
So if judgment is the only thing that will work,
if judgment is the only way to break the idolaters' hearts and turn them back to the source of life, then judgment becomes an act of love.
That's where the challenge really hits us directly, isn't it? We all want the comfort of the Father's embrace, but we often resent the necessity of the King's rod.
And that is precisely the reality the prophetic voice confronts us with. The God who provides comfort must also confront compromise. The same shepherd who gathers his lambs has to be prepared to strike his wandering sheep.
Painfully.
Painfully, yes. To keep them from rushing headlong into spiritual ruin. It's the most painful, maybe the most powerful demonstration of protective commitment.
Okay, let's bring this ancient history. These two kingdoms panicked by political pressure, seeking horizontal solutions. Let's bring this right into the life of someone listening today. The sources ask a piercing question that just spans the millennia. Who is your God? Is it the Lord, or is it the culture and the systems that surround you?
And the sin remains identical, even if the geopolitical actors have changed. We live surrounded by world systems, and like Israel and Judah, we are constantly tempted to seek help horizontally.
From the world, from our own efforts.
Rather than vertically from the living God.
So when the modern soul feels that spiritual pressure, that confusion, or when real suffering hits, what are the modern equivalents of running to Egypt or Assyria?
Oh, they are the immediate, tangible escapes. If your heart is crushed, or if you feel hopeless, the modern horizontal solution promises immediate, controllable relief.
Can you list some of those specific horizontal escapes that the analysis highlights?
Well, we run to distraction. We look for rescue in endless entertainment, in comfort, in consumerism that just dulls the pain. We seek validation in performance.
In work.
In success at work, in accumulating money, in popularity, in the approval of certain people or groups. We run to relationships, expecting our spouse or our friends to fulfill needs only God can meet.
And that hits home, because those are the paths of least resistance. It takes a massive amount of faith to run vertically when the horizontal solution is right there ready to soothe you.
Exactly. And often, just as the sources know, we also seek ultimate solutions in political systems or the promises of governments. We invest our ultimate hope in what is temporary and fallible.
Expecting a human structure to provide salvation? Or peace.
Or righteousness. Things that only the king of the universe can guarantee. This is simply the modern form of making a treaty with Egypt.
So the core message from Hosea remains absolutely relevant. Do not seek life from what is dead. Don't look to the world for the deep, abiding security and redemption that only Christ can provide.
And that's why the judgment, the tearing of the lion, is ultimately an act of grace. It exposes the utter futility of those other things we run to.
It forces the return.
It forces the return. That painful judgment is the very mechanism of God's love calling us back to reality, and it echoes right into our present circumstances. It is I, even I, who allows the wound so that you might be forced to return.
It is I, even I, who withholds comfort from the things you trust.
So that you may desperately seek mine. The judgment is the divine surgery required to remove the infection of idolatry.
It's a powerful image.
It is I, even I, who exposes your worthless idols so that you may cast them down and cling solely to me, the source of eternal life. The ultimate purpose is always, always to achieve that return.
So the required action for every listener, regardless of your personal circumstance, is crystallized. Return to the only God who can truly rescue and truly heal.
And this brings the entire deep dive to its synthesis. The love is so profound, so great, that the Lord will not permit his people to continue on a path that leads away from him into spiritual ruin.
So he initiates it all.
The Lord initiates the judgment, the Lord does the tearing, and the Lord absolutely guarantees the healing and the redemption.
As you move forward today and consider your own circumstances, we'd encourage you to just dwell on this paradoxical image of the Lion King. Mull on the tension of a king whose hands may strike, but whose heart saves. It's a terrifying but beautiful picture of ultimate, unstoppable faithfulness. And in every circumstance, whether you feel his chastening or his comfort, the ultimate declaration over your life remains, I, even I, am your God.